work for the Cyprus Prisons Department. I'm the senior officer, the deputy director of the department. I'm responsible for the supervision of staff, for inmates, and also I'm responsible for managing the incidents 24 hours in our prisons. I have a police background. I worked for many years as an undercover agent in the police. Then I moved as a criminal investigator for many years, and then I was heading the Human Rights Office in the police. Then I moved to the Ministry of Justice and Public Order as an advisor to the Minister of Justice regarding prison matters and the police detention centers. And then I moved to the prisons with the new directors. The past 6 years, we've been working together for the reformation of prisons and the change of this prison system, the punitive that we had before, to a rehabilitated one, actually. Yes.
Great. So the main question that I have is that if you can give us, from your personal experience in prison and all this very significant work that you're doing there, a comment or your input or an overview of how important education is in prison, in the sense of both the daily life in prison, but as well as the reintegration of convicts in the society once they are released.
Just to say that we are very proud of our educational system in the prisons. Actually, we implement new modern management concepts as regards the prisoners and staff, and also for the whole organization. And we foster a learning environment actually in our prisons, because we believe that with the learning you can change attitude, behavior, and mindsets, and restructure your whole life. So we invest a lot in the education, as we believe that you can have great results in this. Actually, we believe that learning can help in the development and openness of the minds, reinforcing the protective factors, and help actually the inmates to fix and correct all these issues that they drove them actually in the first place in prisons, and actually meet their needs regarding obtaining appropriate life skills and core competences, along, of course, gaining knowledge and professional experience through the vocational training. And don't forget that in our prisons we have people from 68 different countries with different characteristics, different cultures, problems, and needs. In this regard, we have created 8 schools in our prisons. We have actually the same prison system as the country's educational system. Actually, it is built on the relevant recommendations as regards the adult education, etc., and all this. So there is a secondary education, higher education, and tertiary education. Also, they can attend school programs, but also they can study and obtain a master and bachelor degrees. Actually, now we have 19 of our inmates that they are studying for their bachelor's and master degrees. And of course, we are one of the actually the first country out of the countries of the Council of Europe that we have the highest participation of inmates in prison education. As 3/4 of our inmates are attending schools, and they have the equal pay, like the pay that you have when you work in prisons. Also, we've been, as a good practice, and we were awarded during the European prison regime as a good practice out of all the countries of the Council of Europe for the years 2017 in Rome and 2018 in The Hague. And more recently, we were awarded with there was a national competition actually from the Ministry of Culture and Education from the Prevention of Violence Observatory. And we were participating with 14 activities from last year activities, and with by creating a poster. And we were one of the 7 schools in Cyprus that we were awarded with the prize of 300 euros. So we believe a lot in the education, as we believe that it helps generally, and actually generally our prison system, it helps and contributes vastly in their rehabilitation and in the redirecting their mindset. So it helps in building and creating active, responsible citizens that manage situations differently from before, of course, and prepare them for the free society. And also we believe that learning reduces recidivism, and this, of course, translates into reductions in crime and also in the prison population, and long-term contributions to the safety and the well-being of the society, to which formerly inmates will reside after their release. Also, we believe that education helps in finding more easily a job as a qualified individual. As you know, the employment is one of the fundamental characteristics of successful reintegration and readjustment, of course, into society. And it ultimately lowers the likelihood of an individual to return to illegal activity. That's it.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's more than enough, and thank you. Just have a couple of small more questions as a follow-up on that. The one is, we have understood from what you're saying, and it's known also that Cyprus has done a lot of things in reconstructing the system, and there are a lot of good practices to share there. And also, I am aware that you're doing a very interesting job, not only for the education of the prisoners themselves, but also for the education of the prison staff and the police staff in terms of respecting their rights, etc. So could you tell us also just a couple of comments on how important this aspect is as well, the proper education of police and prison staff as well?
It is equally important, actually, the education of prison staff. That's why we reallocated our budget, and we allocate abundance of funds in the education of inmates, but more, of course, in the education of the prison staff, because we believe actually the same thing as we believed about the inmates as well. We believe that it contributes to their personal development as well, and to obtain skills that they can help them out in carrying out in a very professional way their duties. It also helps the organization as a whole. When you educate people at all levels, you foster a learning environment, and you restructure also the behaviors and attitudes of staff. Because before, one of the things that we had when we had the punitive system, it was the ill treatment, the behaviors of staff, the favoritism, the higher rates of corruption, and all these things. When you have such a punitive system that doesn't provide any education to anyone, either to inmates or staff, so you have a mess in this organization that it's from its definition a very complex and sensitive organization. So we made the same efforts for the prison staff as well, and we have created a prison academy, and now they have also 2 gyms, because we believe that also sports are an integral part of the general education of people. That's why we invest a lot also in sports, and in this way both populations and both teams, I can say, from our prison, prisoners and staff, they work together to improve themselves and become better, both in their own ways, the staff in their jobs and in carrying out their duties in a very professional way according to professional standards, and the inmates to help them become better and obtain skills and face life in a more law-abide way.
Great, thank you. And just one last question, if I may. Would you like to share with us some of the main challenges and difficulties that your work entails in terms of, for example, the new reality with COVID, or what kind of other difficulties in terms of resources does one expect when trying to deal with this very, very delicate phenomenon of education in prison?
Yes, the situation with COVID, of course, had changed the lives of everyone outside community and, of course, in the closed community, which is prisons. But still, we believe that we should continue in this way. We should find a way to continue as we started the past 6 years. So we never stopped the education in our schools, even during COVID. We made readjustments so as to attend school programs, not in the same way, of course, because the teachers that we are teaching in the public schools, they didn't come to our school, but we arranged this with virtual arrangements for attending their ordinary curriculum, but also with the rest of the school programs, we implement other measures. For example, we had criteria for entrance in prisons. So again, we were allowing the teachers to enter the schools and continue the prison education. Of course, for the sports, we made other readjustments. The gyms were closed, but still we managed to find a way for those that they wanted to have open door exercise, to use the playgrounds, the football grounds and the basketball grounds with the timetable. So they are not having mixing all the wings together. And so we continue the same routine, but in a different way. But we did readjustments so their lives not to change that much, because they had restrictions that they didn't have visits the first month. So you had to have imbalance. We retained the education as it was in a way. And then as regards their contact with the outside world, we implement other measures. And so we imbalance the situations. For example, we restricted the visits, but we extended the hours for communication from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8:30 in the night. And before, we had the use of Skype only for foreign nationals and those who had no visits in prisons since 2015. But since COVID time, we allowed the use of Skype for all the inmates in prison. So we find other ways to balance the situation and keep the normality up to the point that we could, of course. And of course, with the opening of the restarting of the visits, we made other arrangements in the visiting areas. For example, they have physical contact, but without the physical touch, because we have a plexiglass separator for the time being, but they are still maintaining the visit. So they have a huge availability of means of how to contact their loved ones and their friends. So we maintain the social network for them to exist as it was before in another way, actually. So their life hasn't changed much. The only thing that changed is the physical contact that they do not have, of course, due to COVID restrictions. And then their lives, the home lives. Yes, this is a restriction that it's not good for them, but they understand, because We maintain an environment there for their own safety. We are very informative for the beginning, so they felt that we care. We were there every day from the very first day, and we had, in respect, their mutual cooperation and their appreciation. So they followed the instructions. We never had even an incident in the prison environment. We never had an incident during COVID time. And in other prisons, they had lots of problems, lots of riots, even injuries, even deaths, not out of the COVID, but from the interprison environment and the situation that it was created in prisons. So by balancing their rights and implementing other measures to balance this, so they appreciate this effort that we made, and they cooperated. And we had good results, and thank God up until today, we didn't have any COVID incident in our inmate population, which this is a great outcome.